Okay, so we're back. Today we're going to be talking about Act 2 of Macbeth. And so let's get started. This is a shorter act than Act 1, so maybe the tutorial will be a little bit shorter as well. Beginning in Act 2, just want to remind you that PowerPoint does come from TeacherWeb, and there's the URL right there that in case you want to take a look at the original. But starting in Act 2, Scene 1, as we recall, the last thing that happened in Act 1 was that Macbeth and Lady Macbeth decide that they are going to go ahead and murder Duncan. And apparently between Act 1 and Act 2, that has indeed happened. The scene opens with a conversation between Banquo and his son Fleance in the courtyard of Macbeth's castle late at night, and so we get this image of darkness once again. In the second scene, let's back up. In the second scene, Banquo and Macbeth talk a little bit about the predictions of the witches, and Macbeth is contemplating or makes a comment about taking action. But let's take a look very quickly at that passage. In this scene, when Macbeth and Banquo are alone, Banquo says, "I dreamt last night of the three weird sisters. To you they have shown some truth." And look at what Macbeth says. He says, "I think not of them," which is a lie. Obviously, that's the only thing he's been thinking of. But he doesn't want Banquo, obviously, to know what's going on. They talk for just a few more minutes. Banquo leaves. Fleance leaves. And then we have this soliloquy, which is usually known as Macbeth's dagger soliloquy, where he is hallucinating that he sees a dagger. He says, "Is this a dagger which I see before me, the handle toward my hand? Come, let me clutch thee. I have thee not, and yet I see thee still. Art thou not, fatal vision, sensible to feeling as to sight?" This is just a little side note, but this phrase here, fatal vision, there was a book written by a guy named Joe McGinnis about the slayings of Fort Bragg Green Beret officer's family, Jeffrey McDonald, who was actually tried and convicted for the murder of his family. And the name of the book was called Fatal Vision, but it came from this particular passage, just as a little side note. But what happens is he sees this dagger that is bloody, and we have this whole blood motif several times where you see blood, bloody business. And what he sees is this dagger, which is dripping blood. It's a hallucination, probably because he feels a sense of anxiety about what he's about to do. He's not completely at ease with what he's going to do. He feels a certain guilt for his plans. But nonetheless, he hallucinates that he sees this dagger in front of him, leading him to Duncan's chamber. So let's pick up where we were at a while ago. Now, meanwhile, the plan has been that Lady Macbeth would drug the servants and that they are going to be framed for the murder. So Macbeth joins Lady Macbeth after killing Duncan. He goes in, he kills the Duncan. But before we look at that, let's take a look at what Lady Macbeth says. Whoops, right here. In Scene 2, she says, "That which hath made them drunk hath made me bold." Now, what is it that has made them drunk? Well, obviously, it's the wine or the wassail that she has given them. And if it has made her bold, then obviously that means that she must have drunk the wine as well. So why is she needing to drink this wine? Well, the obvious answer is that she has to get herself some liquid courage. And this is one of the first indications that Lady Macbeth is perhaps not as Maybe not as hardcore maybe as she pretends to be. She says, I have drugged their posets that death and nature do contend about them, whether they live or die. In other words, they are, they're so drunk in what she's given them that they don't even know. She hears Macbeth, and he's saying, what? Who's there? And she is afraid that they have awakened, or that Malcolm and Donalbain have awakened, and that he's not been murdered yet. She says, I laid their daggers ready. He could not miss them. So she has prepared everything for him. But look at this part. Had he not resembled my father as he slept, I had done it. Again, we see a soft spot here. Lady Macbeth is not as tough as she pretends. The sleeping Duncan has reminded her of her father, and we realize that she is not maybe as cruel as we thought she was. All right, let's get back to PowerPoint. So Macbeth has killed Duncan, and he is having a hard time with it. If you go back and look at the scene, he says he heard a noise and it scared him, and he tried to pray and he couldn't pray, and he says, I could not say amen when they did say God bless us. I mean, he just committed a heinous crime and obviously is not repentant of it, so therefore he cannot ask forgiveness for it. And she keeps telling him, don't worry about it so much, don't consider it so deeply. He talks about murdering sleep because he killed this man in his sleep. And so they go on. Now look at this part right here. She says, go get some water and wash this filthy witness from your hand. He apparently has brought these daggers from the murder place. He was supposed to give them to the guards, the grooms, and smear them with their blood, and he has apparently freaked out and was not able to do that. He says, oh, no, I'm not going back in there. So she figures she might as well do his job for him, and she grabs the daggers from him, and she says, what are you're so afraid of? I'm not scared of it. It's just like they're sleeping. No big deal. Now, he is just continuing to freak out. He's talking about how Neptune's ocean can't wash this blood from his hands, and how guilty he feels, and how horrible the whole thing was. And then when she comes in, she says, well, my hands are of your color. In other words, they're bloody. But I shame to wear a heart so white. I'm not bothered. Now take a look at this. She says, how a little water clears us of this deed. This particular line is going to be very, very important later on, because in Act 5, this whole scene is going to come back to haunt her. So there's some knocking. Well, we find out that the knocking actually is coming from Duncan's men. In scene 3, they have come to pick him up, to take him to his next destination. And in the beginning of scene 3, this porter who is drunk is pretending to be the porter of the gates of hell, and he's making all these references to all these people who are in hell. And it was designed for the Elizabethan audience to be a comedic relief. The idea of having just an opportunity to take a break from all the stress. It's equivalent to a modern day horror movie. Let's say the audience is caught up in all this suspense, and the murderer or the Michael Myers or Jason, he's in the house and he's coming after the hero, and the hero knows that there's somebody in the closet, and he goes to the closet and opens the closet, and a cat jumps out, and the whole audience just kind of laughs in relief. and then immediately later, within just a couple seconds, the hero is killed or something. So the idea that just for a moment you get a reprieve, kind of like what happens on roller coasters, when there are moments in the roller coasters when you're kind of coasting and you're not going very fast, or you're not going upside down. It just gives you a minute just to kind of catch your breath, because we've had this very intense scene where we know that Duncan's been murdered, and it's getting ready to be followed by a scene where the murder is discovered and chaos is just all over the place. Macbeth has to pretend as though he is not, he didn't know Duncan was dead, and he goes in and in a fury he kills the servants. Oh my goodness, what have they done? They've killed my king. I can't stand this. I've got to kill them. But really what he's doing is removing the servants from the possibility of saying, hey, last thing we remember, Lady Macbeth was giving us some wine. Unfortunately, he's killed the only witnesses. And so Macduff looks at him like, are you crazy? Why would you do that? Why would you kill the only witnesses? Macbeth begins to blubber and kind of explain and just talk about how wonderful Duncan was, and he comes dangerously close to confessing. Lady Macbeth, as always, is there to save the day. She pretends to faint, and it causes a distraction. While everybody's caught up in this, of course, poor old Malcolm and Donalbain, their father's just been killed. And Malcolm is next in line, and they know that whoever killed the king is more than likely on their way to kill them, or that they might be accused of the murder themselves. And of course, they flee to England and Ireland. Malcolm goes to England, Donalbain goes to Ireland for their own safety. But of course, this only serves to make them look guilty. The last scene of Act 2 is scene 4, and you see Ross and an old man discussing the turmoil that has ensued. And they begin talking about how nature goes crazy when a great man dies. And so Macduff comes in to report that the king's son have indeed been accused of killing their father, and that Macbeth has been named as the king. Ross leaves to go to prepare for Macbeth's crowning at Scone, and Macduff stays at his home in Fife. He's going to be very obviously absent from the crowning because he's not quite sure that everything is on the up and up with Macbeth. And so that's Act 2. So work on your study guide for Act 2. If you're doing the guided note-taking, this will be a good time to do that. And we'll be working on the next, the standards focus in class. See you later.